Hello and welcome to the AIM Leadership Living Real live stream. I'm Camille Preston, a business psychologist and founder of AIM Leadership and the author of Living Real. And I'm thrilled to have my colleague, Candace Vander. I always bumble your last name. Say it for us,
It's okay.
everyone.
Vanderthullen. It's totally fine. Candace is great.
I failed phonics and getting real, diving right into real. I failed phonics in second grade, and it is still a little bit of the bane of my existence. So I'm thrilled to have Candace here. She's been my right hand. We have been at lockstep for the last, almost 16 months, and especially over the last 4 months with this book coming live. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation about this book and all the things that are coming out that feel really resonant with this time. And because we're diving right into being real, one of the things we've learned is that I like to be focused on sharing. And so Candace is actually going to be the container or the structure for our conversation. She's going to lead us through this conversation, asking some questions and tracking comments online. So let's dive in. Candace.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's so funny. So just to give you guys some transparency, we had this whole life planned out and, leave it to last minute conversations where we were really hearing the need to shift things. And so we're being a little vulnerable and shifting that this morning. And that, Camille, you've been talking with so many healthcare professionals in the last week where they're dealing with so many and navigating so many complexities. And so can you kind of start there and tell us, why are we shifting over to this today?
Fantastic. I talked to a former client, CEO of an incredible community hospital on Friday. And I woke up this morning, there was an inbox like, where's that proposal? We need to get working on this now. And she shared a link to a New York Times article that had come out today. And it was a pulmonologist speaking about the complexity of being a pulmonologist in this day and age. And the woman referenced this idea of serving patients is so much harder right now. She shared the story of a woman she was caring for who had COVID and most likely was not going to get better. And she talked about the tension of, with her medical commitments, providing the best possible care to this patient while also realizing there were more than one patient in the room. She needed to serve their sons who were standing by her bedside, trying to do absolutely everything they could to serve her. And they would come in with new ideas about treatment plans and strategies. And she was really in this moment of living real and saying, who is my patient? Who am I meant to serve? How do I hold this complexity? And so we read this article this morning and we wanted to pivot and use that as a launching off point, because almost every executive I work with is in that place of holding this level of tension, holding this level of complexity, and really kind of trying to figure out what is the true north when things are changing so quickly.
Yeah, because you had mentioned a compounding crisis is a very pivotal moment in a lot of people's desire to see change happen. And can you just, share with us how you're seeing this across different organizations?
Yeah, it's a great. So a compounding crisis, I think almost everyone on this conversation can resonate with. It's where you're doing your best, you're juggling a lot of balls, you're keeping all the balls in the air, moving forward. And then there's one thing that happens that just kind of breaks the juggle. And that could be, tariffs changing and all of a sudden changing your business model. That could be an elder getting sick and needing to shift how you're navigating your business commitments. But I see time and again how people have more and more responsibilities, are stretched more and more thin across their responsibilities, and probably are spending less time investing in themselves and less time investing in relationships. So that when that last straw hits, it's kind of a compounding crisis that helps us, it jars us open. Is that responsive?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you've talked about this where, what do you think that the biggest struggle is in that moment when you just kind of mentioned it, when you said that they're stretching themselves so thin, they're really disconnecting from their relationships and even their business to some degree. And you often reference this as shallowing, a part of shallowing, part of where it originates. Can you unpack what exactly shallowing is and why it's so important for us to pay attention to this?
Yeah. So shallowing is the starting point of living real. It's starting to
Mhm,
recognize that we operate in the full range of emotions. Life
mhm,
fully lived has highs and it has lows. It has delightful moments and really hard things that we navigate. And what I've seen time and again is how people start stuffing or start putting the hard things into the metaphoric basement of their lives, saying,
mhm,
I'm going to put a little put that in a box, I'll deal with it later. I'm going to put that in a box, I'm going to deal with it later. And so
right,
all of these hard things, whether they're grief or lost
mhm,
dreams or an ended relationship or perhaps, a health diagnosis not going goes into the basement. But what people don't realize is that by putting all these hard things into the basement, they actually are cutting off their ability to feel joy. And what
right,
that means is that the what is normally a healthy sine wave of your life becomes much more shallowed.
mhm,
Relationships become more thin. Inform Your capacity to feel emotions becomes much more thin. Your
mhm,
access to information becomes much more thin. And then all of a sudden, in all that shallowing, we have a compounding crisis. Something happens, and it really triggers
mhm.
people into saying, "Wait a minute, what's going on?"
Yeah, well, and it can be really hard to make decisions in that state because you're already shutting down, but then you've been so disconnected that you're probably not listening to people and you're sitting here only seeing one perspective. It just makes hard conversations even harder, which is
Yeah.
the whole premise behind, living real is to guide people into better conversations, deeper relationships, and how do we really,
Starting with themselves. Starting with
yeah,
themselves. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And just to lead into that, like, that can be a
Actually,
scary
before we
thought.
go there, can I
Yeah,
throw out one more thing?
yeah,
See, this
yeah.
is why Candace is responsible for holding the structure because I get so many ideas and I get so excited. One of the important things about the shallowing is it is driving our mental health pandemic. It is
Yeah,
driving loneliness. It's driving burnout. It's driving um, anxiety, depression. Everything that we're seeing spiking
mhm,
around us is actually a manifestation of the shallowing that we're experiencing. So part of
mhm.
our passion about living real is about living a great life, but I think it's also about getting to some of these systemic problems that are just causing
Well,
so
yeah,
much angst.
exactly, and
Sorry, thank you.
no, no, exactly. No, you're hitting everything that is so important and vital about this conversation is that we're also silently struggling. And that was one of the biggest things that you noticed. And we notice in these conversations that we're having is like this person over here is dealing with this, and so is this person over here, but nobody's saying it. And so we're just kind of going through it by ourselves instead of just saying, having that vulnerability of I'm going through this. It's really freaking hard and I don't know what to do, instead of feeling like we have to have the solution, which leads me into my question. Don't you see this trend in people of higher positions where they feel like they have to have it all together? And that's a portion of
Mm,
why they're doing this, like why they're shallowing even their
yeah.
vulnerability. Like,
Yeah. 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 Oh, I see it all the time. So um, I think shallowing is happening across demographics, across age groups,
mhm,
across positions. And I
mhm,
think it's particularly salient as people move up in organizations because there
mhm,
is this illusion or perception that you should have it all figured out. You should be able to
mhm,
juggle all these. I see everybody else on Facebook or Twitter or X or Instagram juggling all these balls. Why can't I? And so
mhm,
part of it is we see other people's highlight reels of doing it
mhm,
perfectly and we see our blooper reel, but partially that thinning of relationship, we don't even know where to turn to start to
mhm,
think about reeling. And that's what we really hope the book is. It's an invitation to start inside and just start to say, what does it mean for me to live real? What are the illusions I've bought into? What is it that I really want? And then how is it that I can start to make small shifts, micro shifts towards what would feel like a more real existence with myself, within my family, with relationships, and so
yeah.
forth.
Well, and here's the thing that we know and recognize that that work can be hard, right? Like finding the
So,
time, we're already, which leads me into my next question about burnout, because burnout
mm,
is something that we see it everywhere. And while there's so many different ways and methods that we can, kind of mitigate it, I don't. we feel like the shift is happening where it has to be done differently. What is your perspective on why we need to approach it differently?
It's great. So many moons ago, 25 years ago, actually, I did my dissertation on burnout and law enforcement. So I've been tracking burnout for an extended period of time. It's only in the last 5 to 7 years that it's come into the popular lexicon. Came into the lexicon around healthcare before the pandemic, and then it felt like it became a common way of thinking about people's emotional states in the pandemic. And so while I'm really excited that burnout is something people are recognizing and talking about and wrapping their heads around, I think so many people are approaching the challenge. It desperately needs to be addressed. It's a huge cost to businesses. And I think we're not getting to the root cause. We're not getting to that basement. We're just trying to add things on so that we feel better. But the real gateway into feeling better is by expanding that sine wave, being able to feel highs, to feel lows, and to be able to process emotions.
Right.
You want me to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
what I see in healthcare?
Yeah, well, and two, I think just to piggyback a little bit, and what we've talked about is that the burnout is being caused because you're trying to keep, the status quo. You're trying so hard to manage things instead of just saying, you know what, I cannot handle anymore, and I need to have this conversation. And I think you're about to lead into that, what you're seeing in healthcare, particularly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think healthcare is an easy place to see it. Actually, even before we go there, we haven't shared, but this book came out of my own season of grief, navigating a lot of adversity and sadness. And I actually had 5 deaths in 5 months. The first 2 were kind of the hardest 2. And when life kind of hits you like a compounding crisis and it hits you, you have to step back. And when you do, you start to feel your own grief. You get to see your own kind of reaction and response. But then I also watched what happens when I go out into the world and I try to talk about this loved one that I lost and try to have conversations. And I saw people who I know love and care about me not really knowing how to have conversations about sadness, not really knowing how to hold grief. And there's such a societal trend, which is like, okay, it's been 4 days. Are you going to get back to that workout schedule now? Like, what does that look like? And we need time to process things. We need time to hold that. Now, in the healthcare space, I mean, gosh, it is so humbling to walk beside wherever they are in the healthcare system, whether it's an executive running a hospital or someone on the front lines cleaning bathrooms. They often have come into this profession because they want to serve, they want to help, they want to support. And they do hard things on a daily basis. They make hard decisions. They have hard conversations. They have to make hard choices as they provide care for their patients. So that has a discord, like an extra emotional toil as compared to maybe other professions. Stack on top of that, they are in a profession that has changed drastically. Many healthcare executives that are more seasoned in their career, they are in an industry that is very different from when they chose healthcare. Like doctors who signed up to participate are living in a very different industry. Stack on top of that, they've seen the kind of underbelly of their organizations torn out as they've navigated financial crises and really had to force to rethink. And then they're also kind of contained by best practices. So they're feeling all this tension, and they're really caught in that place of what is the voice that I listen to? What is my internal compass? How do I stay in integrity with myself? And I think the purpose of the living real is it's not a cognitive decision. It's really a full body decision. And often one's decisions that are made from the heart center, from that integrated whole, like, what do I know? What do I feel? What do I intuit are the best decisions. And so this transformation that I think is about to happen through all the hardship that we've been navigating is this enlightenment and an opportunity to come inward, listen to our own inner truth, and in that invitation, be able to step more confidently out and say, this is what is living real. And this is how I can make a more conscious effort to honor those parts within myself and within my colleagues and within my organization. I took us a long way away from burnout.
That's
Bring
all
me back
right.
if you want.
No. I mean, well, because we're seeing so much decision fatigue, emotional fatigue. I mean, we are inundated with notifications 24/7 now, unless you are like me and have do not disturb on like a million times a day. But the point is though, is that we have access to so much information. And so part of living real is also recognizing and being able to filter through, what is it that we're pulling in and how are we digesting that information? And then being able to have those real conversations about what we're taking in, because we are seeing so many things change. We see so many people in transition from job losses to health crisis to, just a lot of shifts.
AI disrupting their business model, AI disrupting how they engage, going virtual, losing those relationships. I mean, it's transformation is everywhere, and it's uncomfortable, really uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Go ahead. No, keep going.
I was for people who've followed our work. Our first book was called Rewired, and it was all about how technology is changing our brains and how it's changing how we operate. The next one was Create More Flow. How do you start to understand and design your life so that you can spend more time as your best version of yourself? And Living Real is taking those threads and then almost pulling them deeper into your moral compass, your way of engaging in a way that integrates and aligns, but then ultimately gives you back so much more energy. So our hope is that it's an invitation to be more real, and it becomes a self-renewing energy source within yourself and your relationships to build that momentum.
Yeah. Well, and, going back to burnout, it's that I think so many people are in that state of burnout that they don't even have the capacity to even get to know themselves. And you offer such a great way of being able to ask those questions with a little bit more ease. That's where our activities kind of come into play. Because doing this work, we know it's a challenge. And, when we're looking at these things, what do you think would be the most valuable for people to just get started on one thing of like listening inward? Do you want to even dive into that for just a moment of what that looks like?
Yes. So Candace is referencing. So the book is divided into 3 parts. One is understanding the curse of shallowing. Like, what is shallowing? How is it showing up in our world? What is it costing us? And the data is somewhat terrifying. So if you get that, you can start with part 2, which is, where am I and how do I start to unpack what it is that I need to be able to live more real? And we spend the second part of the book is really about, how do you start to hold tension? How do you hold complexity? How do you learn to navigate that messy middle of like, I'm not where I was, but I'm not to where I want? And how do I sit in that place to be able to continue to lean in? And we aim to provide fairly tactical strategies for how to manage some of these abstract, complex ways of thinking about, what does it mean to listen inward? What does it mean to know yourself? And we finished the book. We were told it had to be launched today, which is exciting. We made the deadline. And after we went into publication, we decided there needed to be activities to help people really start to integrate and say, okay, how does this play out in my daily life? So on the website, livingreal.aimleadership.com/activities, we've built out a 2-page worksheet for every single section, every single chapter, so that you can actually say, hey, let me think about what this means in my day-to-day. And so to answer your question about, I think the easiest gateway in is to shift from the doing into the being. And I'll make it really personal. I have 2 little kids that I love to pieces, and their lives are so busy. My son turns 12 on Wednesday, which is really exciting. So 10 and almost 12. And for me, what that means, shift from the doing to the being, is not engage with them of like, okay, what do I need to do to get you out the door to school? But like, who are you? How are you? What was your day like? Giving them a hug. And sometimes it can be as much as 10 seconds of like a heartfelt connection that grounds me and grounds them. and then we both go forward. It's probably
Yeah.
more than 10 seconds, but you get the point. The idea is getting into that heart center in the small shifts, like finding stillness to connect.
Yeah, I think that's one of your biggest themes of last year that we started presenting was the micro shifts. I think that as a society, we're real big and it has to be done at the first of the year and it has to be really big and loud instead of thinking strategically, like I'm going to, instead of overwhelming yourself with a radical change, it can be those little bitty things of micro minutes of more presence that really shift your whole day. And that's why it's, Living Real is about more presence and having that happiness, having better success, and really redefining those into a language that really resonates for us going forward. So we kind of talked about.
Can I throw out an idea on that? So the subtitle is Redefining Success, Presence, and Happiness. And the idea is that we have all been told what success is. I want you to figure out what success means to you. I want you to experience what does it mean to be present with yourself, for yourself. And what is your definition of happiness? Like, my definition is getting up and having alone time at like 3:30 in the morning. I'm sure that is not your definition for many people on the call. It happens to be Candace's too, so we get along pretty well. We're off and running early in the morning. So I think that's really important. And then the other thing that is coming out in less than a month is an app, because we know that people are moving so fast and they are going so. My belief is that people know what they need to do. It's just hard to figure it into their lives. So the micro shifts are this idea of how do we fit those small changes, small shifts that can really amplify our enjoyment. And then the app that we've built out is how do you do that from anywhere? So we're really excited to share that too, coming soon.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Like we could dive into all of that. But the big thing too is to remind people, like we were talking about the structure of the book. And I love that you outlined that because it is really built to kind of meet you where you are. So if you don't really need us to explain what's going on, then you can shift forward. But the biggest, thing that we hope to convey is that it's possible, right? Like there's potential. And, seeing how fast we put this book together, anything is truly possible. And Camille, what is the one thing that you want to leave listeners with today about the book? And again, like we kind of talked about your hope last time, but when you're really thinking about it, what's that second layer that you hope readers will find, or listeners, if you're listening to the Audible version, find out of this book?
It's a great question. It's really written as an invitation back into yourself, back home. And so my hope is that everybody experiences it differently for yourself. And that becomes a source of energy, or maybe like a source of confidence to start to engage those around you. Maybe doing a little love bomb to folks that you care about, being more genuine and authentic. So that's the invitation. I think the other part that feels really resonant right now is if people can find their way forward into being present to what is. There's a lot of really hard things happening right now. And the natural inclination is to shallow, to tune out, to numb, to scroll. And just if we could take an inch of presence to be more present, to whether it's beautiful things or hard things, I think it can really shift the trajectory of where we are personally and as an organization, community, and so forth.
Yeah.
We're excited to shift.
Yeah, I was going to say too, Camille, that I think what you're also speaking to is that, we don't have to necessarily, go on social media and speak all the energy and emotion behind what we're experiencing, but we can open up in a different way to have that conversation to say, hey, I am feeling this way towards this. How are you feeling? So that we can have that dialogue back and forth and really start to rebuild our communities and have those conversations. I know that in the next couple of months, we'll be putting out there about hosting a dinner with Living Real to really pull in the elements of how do we have these conversations in that safe space and do so as a community. So yeah, we're really excited.
Yeah, this is an invitation to everyone listening. Whether you read the book or not, we are pulling together resources to help you start to have different conversations in a really safe, familiar way, a safe, friendly way with those around you. So we look forward to sharing that. And you're right, it is exactly that we need to be taking one step closer to those around us and building
Mhm.
relationships, um, listening to ourselves, listening to those around us
Yeah,
to
yeah, because it all
navigate.
starts within us. So, and we know this. Easier to say than practice, right? And we're always helping others. But yeah,
Always
we're
want
just
to share.
looking forward. We're looking forward. The book is live. There's many ways that you can obtain this book. We hope that you will read it, download it, listen to it. Camille does a phenomenal job just saying on the Audible. So yeah.
Oh gosh, that's a whole living real story in of itself for another time. Um, I wanted to come full circle on the New York Times article. We'll link that article.
Mhm.
And this doctor created such a wonderful way of saying, this is real. I have to juggle all these different commitments and I have to listen to what the kids want, listen to what my medical wisdom is, listen to what is happening in the system and listening to my inner truth. And so she's a
Mhm.
wonderful tribute to that path going forward. So we'll post that in the show notes. And we're most excited to hear back from you all about what's resonating for you, both
Mhm.
where you're having wins and where you're also saying, hey, wait a minute, I need a little bit more on this, because we're
Mhm.
excited to walk this path with you on that.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll have more lives to come, but thank you everyone for joining. If you have any questions or, want to reach out to us, please do so. We'll make sure that we have all of that information listed below.
Thank you so much. Look forward to living real with you. Stay well.